Well, your concern was the day before the mission, you're watching the bulletin board to see if you were going operational the next day. They usually post the crews by numbers. Each crew had a number. And on the bulletin board, usually by 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, they'd post the crews that were alerted for the next day. So if your name was, if your crew was on the board alerted for the next day, then that started some things going through your mind, you know, about where you going, what you going to be like. But I don't know if I ever kept me awake all night. I don't know if anybody did, but you know, you had some concern because it didn't take long flying over Germany to find out there was some personal risk involved there, you know. So it wasn't that easy. But on the mission, they usually, of course, most of my missions were flown in the winter, which is very little daylight over there in the winter. I didn't realize, it dawned on me how far north England really is. Our base was located 52 degrees north, and we're about 36 here, so that's 16 degrees north. It's quite a bit further north than we are, and so the days are much shorter in the winter and longer in the summer. But they'd get you up anywhere from, I have been alerted as early as 1:30 up to 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They would wake you. And the lead crew was awakened 1 hour earlier than everyone else. The lead pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, and navigator went to group headquarters to get a personal briefing on the mission, where it was, you know, just the details of the mission. From there, you would go to the group briefing room, is where which is shown all the time on the movies, you know, about the big map and the curtain. Well, it was a big map and it was a curtain, and it did draw some oohs and ahs when they pulled the curtain back. But you'd be briefed there, load on trucks, go to the airplane, and usually in the winter over there, it was temperature was running in, say, the 40s, low 40s, and a lot of drizzle and rain. It's really miserable weather. So you go out the airplane, you get the airplane, it's cold and damp in it, and it's dark. And so you're messing around with a flash there, and you actually, I guess you were scared. And miserable weather, and the climate was miserable. So you get in the airplane with a flashlight and fumble around, get in there for a bit, and then it basically would start up the ground power unit, which would give you electricity for the airplane, and you get some lights on and some heat on, start throwing up a little bit. And I would spread my charts out and draw the courses and get all my paperwork done as I could, and check my equipment, and I'm ready to go. And crank up and taxi out, and in line there would be usually 39 airplanes from one group. It would consist of 3 squadrons of 13 airplanes each. You'd have the lead squadron, then you'd have what's called, referred to as the high squadron, which would be 500 feet above and to the right. The low squadron would be 500 feet below and to the left. So you crank up and you get airborne at 30-second intervals. And I'll tell you that I'm speaking from the lead navigator's viewpoint, what we did. You would take off, and we would go to a radio bunker, a little radio homing station. It was called Bunker 19. It's about 20 miles south of our airport. You would go to this bunker. We'd go on the south heading, and we'd turn left to a heading of 130 degrees and fly it for 5 minutes, do 180 degrees, come back to the bunker, turn around again, go out for 5 minutes, and so just stair step that way. All the time you're flying, the pilot's trying to maintain 150 mile an hour indicated airspeed, and climb at a rate of 250 feet a minute, which is very difficult because he didn't have the equipment they have now, the controls. He was flying the airplane manually, basically. And trying to fly, if you were going to assemble, say, at 18,000 feet, and you're climbing 250 feet a minute, just 4 minutes for 1,000 feet, It'd take him 72 minutes to get to 18,000 feet, and all this time he's physically trying to fly 150, 250 feet a minute. And that's just about impossible. With 30-second spacing, you could break out on top of the clouds, and you could see that it didn't look like the paper showed it, just a perfect stair step. There was airplanes all over the sky. And there were mid-air collisions. When it happened, you know, there was not much, just a big ball of fire, that's about it. But it was cause for concern. And as a lead navigator, you were told to be over a certain position, approach this position from a specific heading, and be over this position at a specific time, and you were given 30 seconds tolerance, one way or the other, from the minutes you were told to be there on a certain heading. And the reason for this was the bomber groups were spaced 2 minutes apart. So you were getting in line at that point. I neglected to say that when you get a breakout on top, you would get your formation together. And the way you found your group, it was dark, mind you, that each squadron would fire flares, usually 2 of them. And you were briefed on what color flares that your leader would be shooting at a hole in the top of the airplane for a very pistol, shoot it out there. But you'd say you flare a red-green flare, that would be one squadron. Red-red, that'd be another one. Blue, different color flare, so you would know where your leader is. And so you get, that's the way you'd form the squadron. That the lead navigator, to me, was making the, what they call the rendezvous point on time. And then, of course, the lead navigator did all the work. Everybody followed him. The other navigators were needed because if they got shot up and had to come home by themselves, they needed a navigator. The course was supposedly designed to keep you out of as much anti-aircraft fire as possible. And so you just plow along till you get to what's called the initial IP, the initial point is where you start your bomb run. It was usually anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes before a bomb's away. And you'd have to come with the initial point at the right altitude and on the right heading. And at that point, you're flying formation. But your formation is stacked above, below, and you know, in the groups. But at the initial point, they would, what they referred to as uncover. The bombers would spread out, and each squadron would be at the same level to avoid dropping bombs on people below you, so they kind of flatten out and get out of each other's way. And after the bomb's away, get back in their tighter formation configuration and just plow your way on back home. Last week, March 29th, was our 60th wedding anniversary, and we feel it's necessary to add we were married 60 years to each other. So we do put that in there, it's to each other. So